Chilly here with Serious Dallas. Let's talk mental health and orgasmic birthing, but also intelligence, defense, and lots of other stuff. Moon hour, Mercury day, the moon is 7 degrees Aries. Midheaven, 3 degrees Cancer, ruled by this moon in the 7th house, Mars. Closing a cycle with Aries and Venus, 23 degrees Gemini. Sun 22 in Taurus, Mercury in Taurus, in the 8th house of birthing. And when we think about mental health, if we take the notion of orgasmic birthing, and it's a good thing to open with the mantra: love is patient, love is kind, love does not delight in evil but rejoices in truth. And this is um, this is something to keep in mind when we think about mental health, because even when it comes to extremely serious issues, um, violence issues, secret society issues, cult issues, a lot of things go to the moment of conception. And I've talked about how people like Louise Hay progressed with the notion that our perception of the divine needs to support our well-being. I talked about how gruesome violence like ritual abuse is basically about using violation to create induced mental ailment that expresses itself in loss of sense of self, that allows susceptibility to the psychic realm from an unhealthy place, unhealthy timelines, the type of a call that brings lack of faith in life to everybody practicing it, by the way, and how when we talk about embodiment or reaching the psychic realm through embodiment, another point is orgasmic birthing. And this is where definitely when lineages grew up with creation stories that do not support loving relations, or where there would be violation in the creation story, even if the day-to-day of life of people was not like Genesis, it still affected the policies that govern the wealth consolidation. They would meet at the schooling for their children, affordable housing, and medical care. Now, when we talk about embodiment as reaching the psychic realm, um, we're also talking about an intelligence that is alive. And it's not based on treason. So now, when we talk about orgasmic birthing, it is entering, as I heard from people that studied to be doulas or people that had such birthing, it's entering some state that could be considered psychotic. And when we talk about conception, it's the ability to enter such a state being safe. If you cannot orgasm to elate at what looks like psychosis in the arms of your partner, then there's something off with the relationship. And again, it's and vice versa. And it begins also with self-pleasure. I talked about the gruesome cases where infants are astrally violated, and so the access to such practices or self pleasure with a lot of other side effects. And when we talk about the mental health, in a world where there is that trust, that ability to actually have the state of orgasmic birthing in orgasm, whether in self-pleasure or with a partner, um, that necessitates the housing that is adaptable, the joy of living, the wish to be here, fertility, the fascia, the creation story, the manifesting of wealth. So when all those things are there, then the mental health care, the body-mind care, um, is supportive of orgasmic birthing. People are not tagged as psychotic when escaping violent relationships. Men or women, all violent training of the military and intelligence complex. One of the reasons that people don't manage to create policies in favor of the public is ritual abuse. Um, and the reason that I'm sharing that is that people will begin to develop the discernment. It also affects the staff that works at the hospital. And the nurse will not get to have orgasmic birthing, so if their working conditions do not allow that, how do we expect to have good, basically, care in care facilities? And this will also support bone structure that allows, with the generations, to sustain humanity. If I think about since COVID, where I was practicing, and even a lot of the healing from trauma is, if I had to say trauma-informed care without, in a better phrasing, it would be orgasmic birthing supportive care. Working sector, housing sector, mental health facilities and physical health facilities. This is where the energy, and I really love the awareness that we were predicting to have with Neptune in Aries, and that is the nervous system awareness. Space, the space needed to live life. When I was right around COVID studying my second course of aromatherapy, practicing these practices, People thought, and the neighbor came to me and said, and I did not understand what she wants from me at all. She said, there was a person here that was working as a sex worker. We did not hear anything. And then she pushed baby. The neighbors were having a baby, and I was preparing with the essential oils, orange and jasmine and so on. And then she pushed the baby to my hands. I was like, hey, hold the baby. She wanted me to have kids. How? Now, it's not about, well, the neighbors live in a certain complex. Well, the housing needs to support. And then the mother of the baby had neural issues where she couldn't even travel to a place that had a slope. But her public housing was on the 3rd floor, that she had to climb with her daughter and the children. And Israel is a country where it is IVF. There is enough land. And when we talk about, by the way, expansion of territories where orgasmic birthing is supported, a lot of women would support. If I think about the story of Swedish women that were not born in Sweden, they adapted, they worked, they got a life. Their partners weren't so adaptive because they weren't used to having a non-subjugating relations in the domestic realm. So just think about the blue ocean of women that want to be able to have orgasmic birthing of many origins in way less densely populated areas. And that will resolve the demographic issue in a way that doesn't necessitate growing a lot of children, which would create an overpopulation that can result in unnecessary conflict and wars. But it also support the birthing and the parenting experience. Because yes, the government, I remember even Benjamin Netanyahu, and I never voted particularly for that party. Everybody votes for what represents their closest interest. And I remember around the time where computers in their 80s were just coming to be, and he said he wants a computer for every child, and indeed there was a computer at every class for every child. The jokes about him was that the computer was serving as a break for the door. So also when we come to tend to the gruesome things, to ritual abuse, but our culture is supportive of orgasmic birthing. When there was the war and there were kidnapped people, tortured people, and missing people, said at a demonstration we need to make the space that is compatible for agoraphobia and claustrophobia. They're going to return. The buses, a person enters the bus, I don't know for what, they need an open window, or they need to come down, or they forgot to click the card. I even saw a lady that she forgot to click her card, she said, and she returned from one of the settlements that were, one of the villages that were actually not a settlement, that were hurt. And she talked about the physical. She said, I'm disabled to the lady that was checking the ticket. And then she talked about the physical disability, and I'm like, lady, do you have a trauma? Because it can be that you forgot to. And she said, yes, it's exactly what happened to me. But she could not even say it. She could not even do the self-advocacy. And then I had to argue with the ticket checker, and then I got overwhelmed. And then I couldn't anymore, and I basically went off at the next station. And that lady was not at all informed, and she wanted me to help this woman to fill the application to basically to reject, which was also awareness for me that I'm not able to support people like through that bureaucracy because I have myself, my emotional triggers. And yet, when we tend to orgasmic birthing and we require for the changes, for the adaptability, first of all, we don't have to talk about trauma. The world wants to double its population. Amazing. The things that are compatible for that, let me tell you, are also compatible to heal trauma. And the world is changing to such tremendous levels that there will be no excuse. Like, people will not be able to tell to anyone, well, we can't change the world. I walked through the mall. The temperature is good for the infants, but not for the pregnant moms, and not for the people that come back from with traumas, and not from people that are healing from trauma of ritual abuse. So I talk about the scripture, but also about the mundane life. And then, of course, when countries or nations degenerate in their ability to support basically birthing, of course they will be desensitized about when they lose life or when the war strategy are basically causing so much destruction that people say is genocide. Just think of how many women in Gaza would have loved to have orgasmic birthing, supportive, escape violence of husband, still live in Gaza. Just, and not to have 6, 7, 8, 9 children. If they want to, yes, but if they don't want to, if they want to dedicate within one child, I can tell you when I was English tutor, privat, I was charging fair price, but it's still the equivalent of 100 shekel. Let's say in the United States it would be $100 for 60 minutes. And I would never pay attention to the watch, but of course it's expensive. It's the fair price. Not only that, it's not too much. And my clients were people that worked at the water infrastructure or at the infrastructure of the city. And for them, I was the privilege. Like, the children were already interested in their project, already doing homework, and because sometimes parents would call to me and say, hey Shirley, do you have a discount? And I say, why? And they say, I work so and so hours and my husband works so and so hours. I say, but it seems like, and I talk to the child, the problem is not with English. The parents know English. So why pay me $100 when you can work a couple of hours less and sit with your child and bond with your child. Way more important, and also why have an external person, because they don't know me, they don't know. If such people, I say, okay, well, I don't make a discount because it seems like the problem is not English. I'm English teacher. If the parents know English and the parents work extra hard to pay for me to teach the child, I say, but the child is missing the parent. I'm not going to comply with that. I rather go with a place where the children already have their projects, families already work, and I'm with a privilege, and they can afford to pay. And for them, it's not for education. It's not that much. It's priceless. Now, um, also in societies that support orgasmic birthing, we have basically when we tend to our inner child, it's obvious. Definitely in therapy, with all that entails. And then the people have time to be parents. Not because they give up bringing value, but if I think of business model in my company, each and every person has to be able to be given orgasmic birthing or with the spouse or with the, I don't know what. It shifts the thinking. First of all, it manifests wealth. It manifests a culture that honors the erotic, non-erotic self, so already reduces what? The sexual harassment or the Me Too issues. So this is something to think about, and um, and this is, and now is the time to require for these changes.